All right, I'm going to dig in and introduce our guest today. Today we have with us two layer agents, Katherine Meisenheimer and Kristen Dodge. Katherine works out of our Wellesley office and works primarily greater Boston area, but she really goes kind of everywhere. And then we have Kristen Dodge, who is part of the hometown powered by Layer team out of Athol. So we'll start with you, Katherine. If you could give us a little background about how long you've been in the business, why you got into the business. Tell us how you got here.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. I kind of got into real estate kind of on purpose and kind of by accident. I had a corporate career before I got into real estate. I had about a 12-year corporate career, which makes me actually feel really old when I think about how long I've been in real estate now. And, at the beginning it was great, but as I advanced in my career and got promotions and kind of moved up the corporate ladder, I realized I really did not like corporate life. And I also wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at the corporate games and the sort of being friends with the people it was politically expedient to be friends with. Like, I didn't want to do any of that. And I kind of kept thinking, I kind of got to the point where I kept thinking, like every day I was thinking, why am I working so hard to make other people rich who don't even appreciate it? If I'm going to work this hard, I want it to be for me and working with people that I want to work with who appreciate what I'm doing. I have kind of an entrepreneurial family background. I'm not from Massachusetts. I'm from a very small farming town in Illinois. And my grandpa farmed. Actually, the family farm, we're kind of happy. We were recently honored by the state of Illinois that our family farm has been in the family continuously for 150 years, which there are not many in the state that you can say that about. But so my grandpa farmed. My dad was not interested in farming. He and a partner owned a small, local car dealership, a two-man show. My dad ran the service department, did all the service. His partner did all the sales. But I kind of have that entrepreneurial background. And so when I started thinking, why am I working so hard to make other people rich all the time? I kind of eventually decided to quit my job because I really wanted to work for myself. And so in an amazing case of wonderful timing, in 2008, I quit my job, not really knowing that the real estate market was melting down, totally oblivious to what was going on. And I actually didn't get my license right away. I took a little time off and kind of thought about what I wanted to do and explored some different opportunities. Kind of always in the back of my mind thinking, if push comes to shove, I'll get a real estate license because I could do some rentals and make money. And I kind of got to that point. I was like, okay, I actually have to make some money now. So I'm going to go get my real estate license because at the time it cost $500 to get your real estate license. I'm like, I can afford that. And so I got my real estate license. And so it was sort of intentional and sort of fell into it by default because I needed to make some money. But I really decided I was going to give it a few years and really give it a go. And so I started out doing some rentals to make money, but I always knew that I wanted my business to be more sales focused. And so I was always aiming towards having a residential sales business. So that's my story.
And you have been very busy. I was looking at your Zillow profile and you have at least on Zillow, which is not even usually accurate, it showed 213 listings and sales. How many transactions have you done so far this year?
This is sales only. I've closed on 19. I have, I think, 2 under agreement that should close later this month. And I've done about 20 to 25 rentals. I'm not sure exactly.
Gotcha. Awesome stuff. We also have with us Kristen from our Athol, hometown powered by Athol. Kristen, you're new in the business. Tell us how long you've been in it, why you got in it, and what does the business look like in your first couple of years?
Yeah. Like Stacey said, I'm relatively new, so this will be my 3rd year in real estate. I am previously from a retail background, so I spent 10 years in retail. Started as a sales associate and really just worked my way all the way up that ladder until I was the store manager and visual manager for Anthropologie. I opened up the Hingham location there. And I felt that I got to a point in the industry where there was really just limited growth potential. The only other positions above me were at the district and regional level. And those positions had been held by people 10 plus years at the time. So I think I was feeling challenged with really nowhere else to go in terms of growth and learning. And I think the other really big thing that led me into real estate was when I decided to start a family. The scheduling with retail was really difficult with a newborn. I was working, probably an hour and a half away from where I live in Athol. So, getting into those 2-hour commutes in the morning and when I left, and was leaving me very short amounts of time with my little ones. So my husband and I had decided that, it was really time to take a jump and try something completely different. And he had been building for the last 7 years, building new construction in this area. And it was something that we had always talked about. And I feel like having a family really pushed me to take that risk and to, be my own boss and see what I could build on my own. So yeah, I feel like that's just my little history.
So tell us, how big is your family now? Because you have your hands full. And how many transactions do you think, how many have you done so far this year?
Yeah. So my oldest is 3 years old and my youngest is 10 months. So she was born December 19th of last year. And so I think there was a lot of planning and strategizing that happened the year prior to give me the flexibility to have a more successful year this year while also balancing family life. So I was uber focused when I was pregnant, worked up until, the very end. So that way I could build a book of business in the beginning of this year that allowed me to just handle transactions versus continuing to focus on prospecting and being out with people, because I really wanted to also spend time with my new baby. So I think, also during that time, I dived heavily into just learning and development and, balancing my time with her versus, being out in the field as well. This year, I've done 24 transactions and total $8.2 million to date.
Wow, that's pretty awesome for somebody who hasn't even been in the business for that long, not to mention the fact that you have a lot that you're juggling.
To Catherine, I feel like, I got my license in 2019, the very end. I decided to join Hometown in the beginning of 2020. And then we went to lockdown 2 months into me being into real estate. And on top of learning a whole new industry, it was everything changing every couple of weeks on what we were supposed to be doing. So I feel like, again, the timing was perfect.
Yes, absolutely. Catherine, I'm interested in, first of all, one thing that's different about your business, Catherine, is that you do take a lot of rentals. Is that part of your strategy for lead development, or where are your leads coming from?
Two separate but related questions. Yes, I think rentals is part of my strategy because my investor clients are some of my sort of AAA best clients that I do business with year after year. They're my most valuable clients, a lot of the investors. Because they buy and sell property. Well, that's what I do too. These are people who buy when the market's good, they buy when the market's bad. And then every 2 or 3 years, they need a new tenant. So I get paid because I sold them the property. And then every 2 or 3 years, I get paid again because I rent the property for them. So it's like a little annuity. Every couple of years, I make a little bit more money on that place, on every unit that they have. So I never want them to call another agent. I don't love doing rentals. And I pretty much only do rental listings for the most part at this point. If the person is willing to give me the exclusive rental listing, I will show it a gazillion times and find them a great tenant. But I don't usually run around with tenants anymore, trying to help them find apartments, unless it's if it's a friend or a referral from another client, I will do it. But other than that, I'm not doing tenant rentals much anymore, just honestly, because I don't have time. But yeah, I never want my investors to call another agent and to start kind of get hooked in with anybody else. So I'm going to service their rentals, and I get paid on them every couple of years, a little bit of money. It's an annuity.
How many of those turned into customers? Like, do you put the tenant into your database?
If the tenant did not have another, if I rented it direct,
Yeah.
100% they go in my database, because tenants become buyers.
Yes.
And I want them to know that most of what I do actually is residential sales. And so they're in my database, they're getting my mailings, they get invited to my events, they're on my pop buy list. Yeah, I work those tenants because tenants become buyers. And then I can rent the apartment again anyway. I would say it's not the main driver of my leads, in terms of lead sources. My biggest lead source is my database. So repeat and referral clients, I would say in any given year, repeat and referral clients are at minimum 50% of my transactions, and usually more like 60 to 70%. I also teach a lot of first-time homebuyer classes. I personally love working with first-time buyers. And I've been doing first-time buyer classes for about 10 years now. And over time, pardon me?
Where do you do those? Like, are those live events, or are you doing online?
Pre-pandemic, they were live events. Since the pandemic, they've gone to Zoom. I would love to go back in person because I think I actually got more out of them. I converted more out of them when we were in person, but the participants like doing it online because they can sit on their couch in their pajamas and do it. So not sure we're ever going to go live again. But
where do you market that?
So I have been really fortunate. I've done first-time homebuyer classes that I have organized, but my most successful ones, I've been really fortunate that I've been able to make some very good connections with some of the nonprofits that run the Massachusetts first-time homebuyer classes, that people who want to use the mass housing type loans, the state-sponsored loans, have to take this course in order to qualify for those loans. And they always need lenders, lawyers, real estate agents to present. And so you're doing it as a volunteer. You can't specifically promote your business. You have to talk in general terms, but my goal is for every class I teach to get at least one buyer out of it. And I don't always, but sometimes I get 3. And so I've been doing, I teach for 3 local nonprofits that run these courses. And anybody in Massachusetts, think about who's offering these courses in your service area and reach out, because this has been, I don't have to do any of the marketing. I show, and I've done this for 10 years now. I have my script, they have their things they want you to cover. And then I've developed my script. I show up and teach for an hour, and that's all I do. And I get leads out of it. So it's been really, but I mean, I've worked to get to that point, and I cultivate those relationships. The class organizers are also on my A+ client list, even though they personally have never bought and sold with me and probably never will, but they invite me to these opportunities. If you can't do that, like in your area, first-time homebuyer classes, fantastic marketing. And I do a few online leads. When I first got in the business, when I was successfully made the transition from rentals to sales, there were sort of a couple drivers of that, but one of the big drivers was I decided to invest in buying some online leads. And then I was spending money on it, so I worked really hard to convert them. And that was kind of jump-started my sales business. And I don't do a lot of online leads anymore because, again, I've been fortunate that I've been busy. But as the market is slowing down now, I think that's something I've been doing again, is a few online leads.
Okay, so when you say online leads, are you paying monthly or doing like the referral-based programs?
I only do the referral-based programs. When I first was doing it, those didn't exist, or at least I didn't know about them. So like 10 years ago, I was buying leads from Realtor.com. Realtor.com, I think now uses OpCity, but at the time they were selling leads like Zillow sells leads. And I bought a lot of leads from Realtor.com on a like per lead, paying monthly fee basis. I don't really do that anymore. One of the things that impressed me about Lair when you were talking to me about joining Lair you just like gave me the list of all of the free lead sources. And there were like 25, and you just gave it to me. And I was like, that's fantastic. And I signed up for every one of them, all of the free lead sources. And the one that has worked for me personally has been Ojo. But I think it's kind of a little bit of luck of the draw for different agents in different markets, which one is going to work for them. My advice to people is sign up for all of them and then see who starts giving you leads. You kind of have to take a couple of the low priced ones first. You're not going to make any money on it. But if you show them that you can convert, you start getting better opportunities. And for me, it happened to be Ojo kind of came through for me first. And then I've kind of been building up my status on their program. So they're giving me better opportunities now. But I know a lot of people are doing OpCity. Some people are doing Veterans United. Just sign up for all of them and see what comes through for you. All the free ones.
Awesome. Kristen, where is your business coming from?
I would say the majority of it is just my sphere, people that I know, and being referred to by my current clients to people that they know. I've had a couple referrals from business partners that got sent my way. And then I think lastly, social media, whether it's people, coworkers that I had worked with previously that now see what I'm doing, or just people looking and seeing the reviews that I have online and directly reaching out to me. And then with my husband being a builder, I do get several people who just, by knowing him and his work, will reach out to him, curious about new construction. And so then he'll send them my way to answer any questions. And, sometimes they turn into, a client that wants to buy one of his new constructions. Sometimes it's not the right fit. And in that scenario, I take them under my wing and, help find the right property for them in that way. But similar to Katherine, when we first joined Layer and I saw that page that has, all of the different lead sources, I went and I signed up for every single one of them. And I've had varying success with them, but, the ones that haven't reached out to me, I just put them in my Real Scout and have added them to a market update every 2 weeks. So at least they're getting, something from me, whether, if I know what area they were interested in, they can see that hot map that Real Scout makes for you and tells you, which properties were the most viewed within the app. And so I'm getting, trying to nurture them in that way when I haven't set anything up. But I would say those have been my most successful so far, and definitely looking to add more pillars into next year.
So getting people, so I think in general, when somebody gets into the real estate business, even if you have a sphere of influence, it's really hard getting those people to start to give you business. Like how, because you have not been in the business very long. So are you staying in touch? Like, do you have a database? How are you touching these people that they make sure they use you when they want to buy or sell?
So I think utilizing social media and putting that out there on, what I'm doing, having as many conversations in person, as I can, letting them know, what I'm doing and, being of service to them in that way. And I think people just seeing how much I really enjoy what I do, and the thoughtfulness that I try to bring into each client experience. There was a lot of things that I tried to take away from, working in real estate. Working in retail and bringing those things into real estate. So Anthropology, their core, philosophy was always about creating this unimagined experience for the client, from the moment that they walk into the door, and being different from every other, retail store that you go and shop with. So I really tried to embody that into, my business and what I'm offering to my clients, because I felt like that was something that I wasn't seeing a lot of other agents do. And I think other people kind of saw, the personal approach that I took to real estate and have wanted to work with me, for that reason. And I've just done a lot of proactive education on my own. I think my first 2 years, I attended every single CE class virtually that NAR put out and just, dove into everything that I could. I feel like there's so many different ways to learn now with, you can YouTube anything, or find accounts that on Instagram or, even on Facebook, see what other agents are doing and, replicate that or, change it a little bit that works for you. So I feel like I really had to dive in and learn a lot of different aspects of this industry to give me the confidence to be able to speak about it, with people in my life.
As far as a database, because it's interesting that you're using Real Scout. So as soon as you meet, do you put almost everybody into Real Scout?
So anyone who's searching for something immediately will go into Real Scout. And we previously didn't have the membership where you had that market reports because it's like the premium level of Real Scout. So that was a feature that just got added in once we joined with Lair. And so I just started adding all of the previous people that, either that I had talked to with at one point or have gotten from the list of referral within the Lair booklet, adding them back in. But I think the CRM is one of the things that I regret not starting and just creating that database. And it was told to me 100 times when I first started, start a database, keep track of everyone you talk to, everyone that should go in there. And I didn't do it, which I really regret. So that's actually something this last quarter that with the subscription to Isaac that I've really been focusing on putting all my past transactions in there with all of their information, as well as, anyone that I recall having conversations with. I mean, anyone that I talk to, whether a buyer or seller, immediately goes into my iPhone, and under the notes, I'll put keywords in, whether it's a buyer lead or seller lead. So that way it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. So I'm going to go back and then start adding them into my database now so that I can better nurture them long term.
Gotcha. Katherine, what are you using for a database? How are you staying in touch with people?
So I've been a member of the Buffini coaching program for quite a while. And so I use Buffini's CRM, which is called Referral Maker. And I really like it. It's been good for me. I do think it's really important to have some kind of CRM. I mean, at the very beginning of my career, I had an Excel spreadsheet. And then I used the $5 monthly subscription to Salesforce.com for a while because it was $5. And it wasn't exactly perfect. And then once I got involved with Buffini, I moved over to their CRM. So, and I would say that's like the most important technology piece of my business is my CRM. And I can do, email campaigns through there. I can, and just sort of categorize people and keep track of who's doing what. So I use Real Scout a lot as well, but it's to me, it's not a replacement for a CRM. It's for people who are looking to buy, who are actively looking to buy. And Real Scout is awesome for that, but it's not a CRM.
Mm-hmm. And then
I think it's also been good though for my seller leads, because with that market report, who doesn't, when they're thinking about selling, who doesn't want to know and stay on top of, exactly what's happening in their town and, where things are trending. So I have
great idea. I haven't used it that way, but I might now. Yeah, good.
Mm-hmm. Katherine, I'm curious as to how you are talking to clients right now about the market. Buyers and sellers alike are just worried about the market. What are the conversations you're having with them?
So the podcast the webinar that you did in June, called The Art of War in a Changing Market, something like that. That was an amazing podcast. I think I've watched that 3 or 4 times. And I've stolen everything that you said in that podcast. And that's what I use as I wrote down what you said, and that's kind of the dialogues that I use with people. And one of the first things that you said, which really struck me, and I think is so true, is you said that agents who see opportunities help clients see opportunities. And I think that is so critical in this kind of market because there is so much doom and gloom out there, not only in the media, but amongst other agents and our lender partners who've seen their business dry up, and our home inspectors who are like panicky. They've been panicky all year because first nobody was doing home inspections and now nobody's buying anything. So there's so much like panic in the market. And I think we have to focus on the opportunities that are out there. What I'm telling people is that this is a great seller's market still, and it's also a great buyer's market. In the market that I'm in, we use MLS PIN, so I really can only see the MLS PIN data and for Massachusetts, but I was actually looking yesterday, and we still only have about 5 weeks of inventory statewide, and for single families, and about 6 weeks for condos. And a seller's market is a strong seller's market is less than 3 months of inventory. We're at 5 weeks. It's a really strong seller's market. It doesn't feel like it because it's so different than it was earlier this year. But the reality is there are tons of people looking to buy houses right now. I taught a first-time homebuyer class last Saturday. There were 72 people on the call.
Wow.
There are a lot of buyers out there who are getting ready for the spring. It's still a really great seller's market. Your house is worth a lot of money. Even if it pulls back slightly, it's a little different than it was earlier this year, but there are plenty of people buying. If we position the house well, we market it correctly, we are going to sell your house and you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to be really happy. And that's what I'm saying to people. On the buyer side, I'm telling people that this is a much better buyer's opportunity than it was earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, this was actually a really hard year for me. Because I do work with mostly buyers. About 3/4 of my business is buyers every year. I love working with buyers, and I'm pretty heavily weighted to buyers even now. And it was so hard for buyers to get their offers accepted. I had a client who went $300,000 over asking, waived everything, told the sellers they could stay for a month for free after closing, and did not win.
Wow.
And what do you do?
Yeah.
Fortunately, those days are behind us. So I think for buyers now, they can make a rational offer. They can negotiate for the things that are important to them. They can do a home inspection so they know what they're buying and decide if it's a good investment. And it's less competitive than it was. So when people say, oh, but the interest rates, look, here, the price of the house almost doesn't matter. And the interest rate almost doesn't matter. The question is, can you afford the house? You live with the monthly payment. So on a monthly basis, can you afford this house? Does it work for you? Do you like it? Is it where you want to be? If the answer is yes, then buy the house. Because at some point the rate's going to change. And if you can afford it now, when the rate goes down, you refinance and you afford it even better.
Yeah.
So get in the house. If it's the right time to buy, it's the right time to buy. Don't try to time the market. And I feel like that's resonating with people because I think it's the truth. If they can afford it, that's what they ultimately care about. And I also think fortunately, we're getting far enough past the rate spike now that some of the shock of that is diminishing. The people who had pre-approvals in April and May and didn't buy, those people are really suffering because they've seen their pre-approval change so dramatically. And a lot of those people are still on the sidelines. But the people who are coming in the market now, they conceptually know that the rate used to be a lot cheaper but they never really did the math for what their payment would have been or what they would have qualified for at that cheaper rate. So they kind of know that, but their reality is, this is my pre-approval. And they're less worried about it now. So I feel like we're kind of getting past that hump of the rate spike that killed off all the buyer interest for a temporary period. So I think we have to remain optimistic. It's a good market for both buyers and sellers. We have to explain that and see the opportunities.
Yes, great point. By the way, we have Sergio put the link to The Art of War in Changing Market inside the chat box. So if you missed that and you want to take a look at that program, you can just click on the link. Kristen, what kind of conversations are you having with your clients? How are you keeping your buyers and sellers positive?
Yeah, so I definitely want to rewatch that too. We watched the Art of War when you first launched it. But I think I've just tried to give them perspective and like far out up looking out. Yeah, the interest rates, are high, but again, is this house, right for you and can you afford it? You can always refinance down the road if you need to, or if this isn't, your permanent spot of, where you see yourself for the next, 10 plus 15 years. Maybe it's looking at different financing options for you if you know you're going to sell, in a shorter time period to bring that rate down for you. So I feel like all of my conversations have been a little bit different for that individual person and what their, motivation is for buying or selling. I think with my sellers, when I've reviewed their market analysis and talked about, kind of what to expect, I've just tried to be as honest and realistic as I can. Ensuring that they understand that the market is different from, where we've been the last 2 years, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a great time to sell. Sharing with them that I think, again, if you do the proper, prep work before listing your property, if we price it right, we are going to get the people through the door and hopefully drive the price up a little bit. But it is more likely that we might see some more home inspections, and it is more likely that, we may not have as many offers, as, you may have two years ago, but they're still going to be, strong, great offers, and depending on, again, what their motivation is, whether it's relocating or sizing up or sizing down, I think focusing, on that with them. And, if that's going to help them, get to that next phase in their life, that's ultimately the most important, I think.
And then, Kristen, beyond the buyers and sellers, how do you as a real estate agent stay excited? Because some days, like, it's day after day after day of like the rates are going up again and the sky is falling. How do you stay mentally like in a good place?
Yeah. So I think it's a lot of who you surround yourself with. So I try to be really aware of, the people that I interact with daily, whether it's friends or coworkers, and, what their outlook is on life. Because I feel like a lot of how you feel is a reflection of the people, that you're around. And I think even to the same with, who you're following on social media, look for the other people who are finding opportunities and follow them and get inspired from them and learn from them. And I think, just balancing your time, so days when I'm feeling, burnt out, maybe it's about, doing a little self-care or, diving into a different aspect of my business, whether it's learning, or, trying to think of fun things that I could do, throughout the year for my clients. So I would say those are two things that, I try to be conscious of to kind of help my attitude and stay positive.
That's
I
great.
mean, there's always going to be challenges no matter what. So
Yes.
or else everyone would do it.
What are you doing to keep your mind in the right place and stay out of the muck?
So a couple things. I mean, I think, so a couple months ago, I said to my, the market was changing, whatever. I said to my business coach, I'm having actually intellectually, I know I'm having a really good year. I'm having a good year. And all year it's felt terrible. Like the whole year has felt horrible because it was so hard for all my buyers. And then everybody quit looking. And she's like, so first she laughed at me because she's like, you say this every year. Every year you say this is the worst year ever. But she's right. I do say that every year because every year is hard in a different way. So it's just adapting to what's hard right now. But she also said something that I think was really important. She actually called me on it a little bit. She's like, you have an attitude problem because you're focusing on the negative and you need to be focusing on the gratitude. Because you're having a really good year. You've helped a lot of people get into homes. You've helped a lot of sellers sell their houses and make, do very well financially, you need to have a gratitude mindset and an abundance mindset. And so that's something, and she was totally right. And it's been something I've been working on the last couple months. And I think one of the things I've been really trying to do is remind myself why I do this. And we each have our own individual whys, but why are we in real estate? Like, what drives us to get up and do this hard job every day? And for me, a big part of it is that, where else can we help people achieve the American dream? We're helping people buy and sell. We're giving them good advice to help them make good decisions. We're on their single most valuable asset, and the place where they're going to raise their families, build family memories. People's homes, for most people, it's the single biggest wealth generator, not only for them, but also for their children and their grandchildren. And the fact of home ownership creates this pool of family wealth that really changes people's lives. And I work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and a lot of first-time home buyers who maybe aren't in the highest price ranges. Many of my clients, they're the first people in their families who have ever bought a home, and they never thought they could do it. And that is for me, that's so rewarding to know that I've helped people get their piece of the American dream and really create a stable situation for their family and also like impact their community. So for me, like, just kind of reminding myself of the bigger picture about why I do this and the success that I've had in actually achieving that why has been really helpful. And then finally, one thing I learned, like way at the beginning of my career, when I was doing a lot of rentals, like, deals come, deals go, deals fall apart for inexplicable reasons. Like, you're counting on that $1,200 check, and then the tenant walks away and you never hear from them again. It's like, you have to let the past go. And so one thing I have been saying to myself since I got in the business now for 13 years is every day is a new chance for a new deal. Every person I talk to is a new chance for a new deal. So I may have had a deal just fall apart. I may have lost out on a listing. Some horrible thing may have just happened, but now I'm talking to somebody else, and every day is a new chance at a new deal. And so for me, I cannot dwell on the past, both good and bad. I have to look forward, but this is a beautiful business that way. It really different from what I was doing in my corporate career, where you were really judged on your past results. But for us, the past is gone. It's gone. Today is a new chance.
I think both of you make great points, because what you focus on is what you get more of. And the agents that will not be in this business 1 year from now are the ones that don't focus on the gratitude and the opportunity. If you focus on the tough parts of this market, it's going to be really difficult to go into 2023.
I'd say one other thing really quickly.
Yes.
One thing I have also realized is that my attitude is contagious. So if I'm discouraged or pessimistic or stressed or tired, my clients don't do anything. If I'm optimistic and excited, and I let them know I'm optimistic and excited, they're excited and optimistic, and then they buy and sell. So I think it's important for me to remember that I get to do the fun part. Like, I get to snoop around other people's houses and get paid for it. And so I think it's important for my clients to know that I'm having fun, that to give them permission to have some fun. Like, sometimes I'll get out of my car, I'll be meeting with a buyer. Usually this is with buyers, but I'll get out of my car and I can see they're anxious and nervous. And I'll be like, hey, how are you today? What a fantastic day to look at houses. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm excited to see these houses. Let's go have some fun. And then they smile and relax, and we go have fun. And people who are having fun, the transaction is so much better and smoother. They associate me with having fun. We have an easier transaction, and they're so much more likely to use me again and refer me down the road because I was fun to work with. So my attitude is contagious. And I think it's important to remember that. We have to put out good vibes.
Katherine, any technology that you super depend on in your business?
My CRM and my phone. I kind of have a low technology business.
And what CRM are you using? Oh, you said Referral Maker.
I use Referral Maker.
Okay. How about you, Kristen? What technology do you absolutely depend on? Nope, you're muted.
Someone had come in the office. Sorry. So I would say the Real Scout app definitely has been super beneficial for all of my buyers. I love the way that the platform's laid out. I feel like especially with the first time buyers where they say like, these are all the things that they're looking for in a house, but then you can kind of spy on them and see what they're actually looking at. And how many times they've looked at a house or different areas that they said that they weren't interested in, but they keep going back to. So I feel like it's allowed me to have some really good open dialogue with them where, obviously I don't want them to know that, I can see everything that they can see, but it allows me to maybe revisit some of those must-have, things that they maybe once said that they had, or style a home that they, said, well, no, I would never want a raised ranch, but, they looked at 7 raised ranches, within the search. So I feel like that app has been really helpful. I just started utilizing Trello last year, and I definitely want to dig a little bit deeper into that. But for anyone who hasn't heard of it, it's kind of like an online pipeline, and you can make subfolders, within your pipeline, and have different boards within that. So I've kind of built out one for my sellers and one for my buyers, and I had started putting, all of my sellers in there and exactly where they are, from, nurturing stage all the way to close to, what I'm doing after close with each of my clients, and building out that same thing, for my buyers when they come in. So you can have sub files within it. I'm a very visual person. So for me, with each person, you can upload a photo so I can see, for my sellers, like, well, this house, is, pre-MLS. You can put checklists within that. So I think for people who have built out teams or, really want to streamline things, which I haven't really got to that part of yet. I've just kind of watched videos on how other agents have utilized the system to make sure that every client is kind of getting that same experience, from start to finish. So I think that's been really helpful for me. And then I use a program on my phone for just social media planning. There's a bunch of different apps that you can use for that, but I personally have Preview, but it allows me to pre-populate all of my social media posts, write out what I want to write out, make sure I like the cohesiveness on what those posts look like, and kind of just set it.
Okay, that was called Preview?
Preview. Yeah. There's a lot of other ones. I think Facebook has their own that they offer. Several other ones I can't remember now, but they all allow you to preload what you want to post on social media. And you can add placeholders. So if you have a closing coming up, you can input that into, when your schedule is. So that's been really helpful as well.
Okay, Kristen, you've only been in the business for a few years, but is there any one thing that you would say is a mistake that you made that you would tell other people to kind of steer away from?
Yeah, so I know people had said not, utilizing the CRM, but I think for me, not tracking what I was doing is one of my biggest regrets. And I think for me personally, it's just about redefining what failure looks like, because I think part of that is an obstacle that I just have to overcome, and think of failing as, me just progressing throughout my career and getting better. So that's something that I definitely want to, really dive into my business plan for this next year is, really being intentional with tracking what I'm doing and finding out what is working for me long term and where to kind of reinvest in those areas of my business, because I think a lot of it I didn't track. And in hindsight, I can go back and look at those things, but I wish I was doing it in the moment, and stuck with it for, 6 months and, then looked at the results to see, what I could reevaluate or do better or, change.
Yes. How about you, Katherine? Any mistakes that you would tell others to steer away from?
My biggest mistake early on was that I was scared to invest money in my business because I wasn't making a lot of money at the time, and I was nervous about putting money back into the business. But I think what I eventually realized is that you have to feed your business for it to grow. You don't necessarily have to invest a lot of money, but you do have to invest some. Like you need a CRM. Um, the three decisions I made kind of all around the same time that really changed the trajectory of my business. One was I started buying some leads from realtor.com. And now we have the option that you can get the leads and only pay a referral fee if you close. I think that's even better. But I invested some money in buying leads. I started to dip my toes into getting a coach and marketing support and like paying some for that. And I didn't go like the full on, one-on-one coaching right away because I couldn't afford it. But I started to invest a little money in coaching, and that really changed my business. And then third, I started teaching first-time homebuyer classes. That didn't cost me really anything except time. So some things you can pay for to save yourself time, and some things, if you don't want to pay for it, you have to invest the time. So you have to invest one way or the other. But I think the thing that I wish I had done some of those like financial investments a couple of years earlier, I would have had a bigger jump start to my business.
My next question, I'll start with you, Katherine, is what does a day look like for you? One of the challenges that people have in real estate is that you get to wake up every day and do whatever you feel like, kind of. Like you can go shopping, you can clean the house, or you can prospect. What does a day look like for you? Is it regimented, or how do you stay on track with doing the things that you should be doing for your business?
Yeah, so one of the beauties about this job is that every day is different, I feel like. That's one of the things I really like about it, that I'm not going into an office and doing the same thing every single day. But yeah, you do have to be pretty self-directed and self-motivated. So no, my day is not really regimented, but I do think there's a rhythm to the week. But every evening before I go to bed, I do look at my calendar for like the next several days and think about what do I have to do tomorrow what appointments do I have, first of all? And then what do I need to do for like all of my active clients to move them forward? And then what do I need to do for things that are coming up later in the week? What do I need to do tomorrow for things that are coming up later in the week? And what do I need to do for my business? Like, what are the sort of longer term projects that I have, events I'm planning that I need to like do something about tomorrow? So I do that most every day, like look at the calendar and think about like, what's tomorrow look like for, all of those things. And then the rhythm of the week, for me, I find that every day is different, but all the weeks are kind of similar. So weekends are usually all about showings. And then Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm writing offers, submitting offers, negotiating offers, like reviewing offers with sellers, presenting them, trying to put deals together. Monday and Tuesday are like putting deals together. And then, like getting the lenders and lawyers involved and like getting deals off on the right foot. If I have something coming on the market that week, usually on Mondays, I'm doing photo shoots as well. So that's like Monday, Tuesday. Wednesdays are usually slower. I feel like Wednesday is like the pause of the week. So I usually try to take a half a day off on Wednesdays if possible. So Thursdays, I'm making listings live. I'm starting to schedule appointments for the weekend. So I'm like calling all my active people, especially all the active buyers, like, what are we going to go see this weekend? And I'm doing the weekend plan. Also, if I feel like if I'm working with a seller and there's any like strategy change we need to make, I try to have those conversations on Thursdays so that if we're doing something in MLS, I can do it so it shows up in time to get the word out for the weekend so other people can schedule their clients to come look at the house. And then on Fridays, I check in with all my active clients and I like continue with the weekend scheduling plan. Sometimes I'm even doing some showings on Fridays. And then weekends again are showings. So like the days are all different, but the weeks have kind of a predictable pattern.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And when you say you're checking in, quick text message to the person?
Sometimes text, sometimes call, sometimes email, depending on where we are in the in the process, and also like how they want to communicate. Mm-hmm. But I overall feel like it's best to call.
Mm-hmm.
because that voice to voice, if there's something going on, you hear it, which you may miss in a text message. If they're having some problem or anxiety, that may not come out in a text.
That's
But
a
if
really
you're
good point.
talking, you can hear it. It also gives me the opportunity. I think I learned this from somebody else at Lair, but I can't remember who. Somebody else said something once, and I was like, that is really good. And I wrote it down, and I've been trying to do it since. I try to end the conversations I have with active clients with, is there anything else I can help you with right now? So before we hang up, is there anything else I can help you with right now? So if there is something on their mind, it comes out. And it just reminds them that I'm always here to serve them. And people really respond really well to that. And I've actually had clients say later, I love how you always ask that, because I feel like you always have time for me and you're here for me.
Mm-hmm.
So just, I think I learned that from somebody here, but I don't remember who it was.
Mm-hmm. Kristen, 2 little kids and a thriving business. What does a day look like for you? Is it regimented? Do you have a system in place?
I feel like similar to Catherine, it's not as regimented. I think every day is a little bit different, but similar to what she said, usually I try to be available weekends for any showings with my clients, or, if there's any new inventory that I want to look at, if it's, comparable to something that I have on the market. So that way, if my seller has questions or, concerns, I have already seen the property. Usually the beginning of the week, I try to focus on touching base with all of my current clients that, are currently under contract with something, or if we're about to, list something, making sure that everything is, all set with them. They know that, I'm here if they have questions. And then I think I would really like to be more intentional with just time blocking my days. I think the challenge that I have is that daycare ends at 4. So anything that I'm trying to do, immediately gets twice as hard after 4 o'clock for me, because, I'm multitasking at that point, with my kids. So I think if there's anything that needs my full attention, my goal is always to have that done, first thing in the morning, or especially, by that, 1 o'clock time frame. So that way, I know that it's all done off my checklist. And then, anything that I can multitask, will happen, later, or, at times after bedtime. I've definitely been there at 11:30 at night prepping, offers so that I could meet that deadline, the next day. So I think that's been, was the challenging part with the market that we were in. It was just, you just had to do it when it had to get done, and you didn't really have a choice. So I feel like now it's nice that there's a little bit more time, I feel like, with what we're doing. But I think going into next year, I would really like to streamline and time block my calendar a little bit more for my own organization, staying on track with everything.
And then we only have a few more minutes. Can you talk, Kristen? I have 2 different questions for you guys. For Kristen, I have, I'm interested in knowing what a listing presentation looks like for you.
So my listing presentation has been a 2-step process. Obviously I get a call, I talk to them over the phone, get as much, information as I can, from them there. And then the first appointment is typically at their house. During that appointment, I really try to focus on creating a personal connection with the client, asking them open-ended questions about the property, why they did certain things, just trying to create that relationship, with them. And then, in addition to, what things they might have done to affect the value of their home, any concerns that they think I should have. And then the second appointment is always held in the office in Athol. So I bring the clients in, I prep a whole folder, for them that has the market analysis that I've done, a lot of the other resources, Stacy, that you've provided. I try to, before that appointment, always email out a copy of the listing paperwork. So that way they have an opportunity to fully read it over, digest it. And, when we get to that point, I feel like at that point, it's not like a deer in headlights of them, feeling pressured to sign something, but they've already seen the document. Hopefully they've already read it over. And at that time, I'm really there just to, answer, questions or concerns they might have about it before, deciding to move forward. And, talk to them a little bit just about my process and, what I think is unique to, my approach and it would be to sell their house.
That's super interesting. So you're bringing them into the office this is the sellers coming to your office for the second appointment.
Yep.
And you're emailing the paperwork in advance. The commission is filled in when you send that out?
Usually I leave a couple things blank when I send it to them. So if I email it to them, I just give them a blank copy of what the listing contract looks like. When they come in to sit with me, I usually have several of the things pre-populated, filled out. I usually leave the price point blank and I usually leave the commission blank. And it's, depending on, what price point, the condition of the home, a lot of different factors. But I'll share with them what my commission is, and based off of what their response is, if I feel that there is any, concern there, I'll address it. If they, don't seem concerned at all, we'll fill it out. I think the one other thing that I always like to ask potential, sellers when they're in my office before I present the CMA is what their opinion of the value of their house is. And I think I get some pushback on that because they say, well, that's the reason why I brought you in here to tell me. But I think in my experience, I want to know, am I giving someone really great news or am I about to give them really bad news?
Mm-hmm.
And how I'm going to deliver this information is going to be completely different depending on where they're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and what they think their house is worth. Am I going to tell someone their house is worth 40,000 more than what they think, or am I just going to give them a blow, back to reality?
Yes.
And, no, your house is actually only worth this, and this is the reason why. So I think really knowing where their mindset is, going into that before I have that discussion allows me to change how I present that information to them.
Gotcha. And then Katherine, if you could quickly just talk about what a listing presentation looks like for you. And I think for you, Katherine, I would love to have you just share a little bit about your client appreciation events at your house and how you do that without it costing you. They basically don't cost you much. So share both of those.
Okay. So my listing appointments are, I would say, more on the informal side. I use Cloud CMA, which I really like, and I appreciate all of the sort of pages about Lair and the benefits and AdWorks, all that. Like I talk about AdWorks, people like AdWorks. But I use Cloud CMA, and but usually, we go to the house, I have them give me a tour, like show me around the home, make notes about what they think is important. And then we sit down and have a conversation. I usually go through often I have a pretty good idea of what the house is before I go. So I usually take the CMA with me on the first appointment. And so sometimes it's because I sold them the house several years ago, so I know the house. And sometimes it's because I just asked a lot of questions before we made the appointment. But I usually have a pretty good idea of what the house is before I go. But if I don't, I am trying to include kind of a range of types of properties in the CMA, so I can say, well, yours is more like this one. Let's look at the pictures and see how it compares to yours. And then, kind of have ones that are really renovated, ones that are not as renovated. But I'll usually go through the CMA with them, and I've typically made notes on the Cloud CMA, like on the sort of first page for each property about what my perception is about similarities and differences. Like, why did they get this money? What was it? What were the driving points on the sale, and how is that the same or different from your house? Because then we can talk about, well, but my neighbor sold and they got X price, and you're telling me I'm only going to get Y. Okay, but they had a 3-car garage. You only have one. They had central air. You don't have central air. Their lot was bigger than yours. Like, we're going to get you a really good price for your property for what it is, but your house isn't quite the same as theirs. Or maybe the other way around, like your neighbor sold for X, but we're going to sell for something better because your house is better. So, and then, I don't know. So mine is a more informal, conversation. And then, I do always, you want to try to close the deal right at the table. So I always have the listing paperwork with me. And if they're ready to sign, I ask them if they're ready to go forward so we can start working together to get their house in the position to sell it. Even if they're not ready to list, I want to get the listing paperwork signed so we can start working together. Client appreciation events. Yeah, that's been really important in my business, because I feel like the best leads I have are repeat and referral clients. They're the cheapest. I don't have to pay referral fees on them. And it's people that I know and like, or their friends who I probably also know and like. If I like their friends, I probably like them too. And so it's just a pleasant way to do business, and it's more cost effective, I find. So it does take deliberate effort, I find, to cultivate the relationships and stay top of mind with people and really build loyalty over time. Like, you want to do a great job for them in the transaction. That's obviously first. But you could have a great experience, and then if they don't hear from you for 10 years, they don't remember your name, they're going to sell the house, they go with somebody else. So one of the key things that I've done over time is client appreciation events. I try to have a couple a year. It doesn't always happen, but these are in-person events, and I sort of try different things. I know, Stacy, today was the cutoff for the pie party. If somebody hasn't done a pie party, you should totally do a pie party. Stacy, it's like giving you the process. You just have to follow the steps. If it's not too late to order the pies, order the pies. And I would say also, I think one of the things that held me back from doing it for a long time, and I think sometimes hold other agents back, is that they're nervous that not enough people will come. And it's like an embarrassing party if 5 people show up, right? So partner up with some other people in your office. Like, find somebody else in your office who wants to do one, and just do it together. You can share the expense. And also, if you're bringing your clients and they're bringing their clients, you have enough people show up that it's a fun party. So I used to do more things in the office, but with COVID, I've kind of moved it to my home. So during the COVID years, I was doing like drive-by events. I did drive-by pies, come by and let me know, and I was like standing on the front lawn and sort of giving people pies as they got out of their car. We stayed distant, said hello, took their pie and drove away. But I'm fortunate that in the last few years, I've moved to a place where I have a little yard. And so I've been doing some things in my yard, and I decided this year I wasn't going to do the pie party. Instead, I did a pumpkin patch event. And so it was, I got some pumpkins from a local farm, and we did cider and donuts. I partnered with another agent in our office. We did cider and donuts, and it was like pretty simple. That was like it. It was cider, donuts, and pumpkins. And we decorated the yard a little bit. But for me, part of the reason the events are good, people come and have fun. Even if they don't come, they appreciate being invited. It's a touch point. But for me, it's a reason to call people. And I usually do like a themed sort of pop by around that event. And so it forces me to do the basic things I know I should do in terms of reaching out to my clients. So it makes me pick up the phone and call people to them. One thing I've learned about myself is if I don't have a reason to call people, I won't call them. I just won't. I won't call and say, how you doing? Just call it to check in. I don't do that. I'm terrible at it. But if I can call and say, hey, I'm having a party, I'd like you to come, I will call them. And then I also will, so pie party, for the pie party, I went to the dollar store and got a bunch of dollar pie servers and attached the invitation to them, and one left it on people's doorsteps. So it gave me, rang their doorbell, talked to them if they were home, but I left it for them. So it gives me excuses to reach out to people, and it's fun. And then people come, they have a great time. They stay loyal. So this last party that I did, the whole thing cost like $400. I would rather spend $400 than have a party than buy $400 worth of leads, because out of $400 for leads, I'm going to get nothing. $400 for a party, we had a lot of fun. And some of my clients were like, watching their kids play on my yard, and we were like laughing. And my client was like, that's all your future customers. That's all your future customers. And like, I hope she's right. I hope that's true. So I think for a small investment, it's a lot more fun than a lot of other things you can do. And it really builds loyalty and gives you a reason to get back in your database.
All right, we are at the end of today's program. I always like to remind people that if you are investing your time into a training class or a podcast, when you're investing your time into your business by sitting through a training class, it's really important to write down the few things that you're going to take away from that program and go execute. Just executing on one thing in your business. I always say knowledge is not power. The execution is the power. And the reason I say that is because there's so many opportunities for training out there that sometimes you could spend 40 hours a week just learning stuff for real estate. The power is taking something away and bringing it to your business, doing something about the information that you learn. Listening to Katherine and Kristen today, I wrote down 5 things that if I was out selling real estate every day, these are the 5 things I would execute on. And by the way, there was 20 or 30 items that you could write down after today's program. But number 1, if you're using Real Scout, use Real Scout, not only for buyers, but I think Kristen made a really interesting point. Why not put all of your sellers in there so that they're receiving market reports, so that that's your touch? They're constantly hearing from you through a market report, through Real Scout. So if I were a real estate agent, especially if I'm paying for the service already, paying the $39 tech bundle, I would be spending a little bit of time getting that working for my business. Secondly, Kristen talked about the preview app. If you are not doing social media or you're not scheduling your social media, I would probably go check out the preview app. If you have not watched The Art of War in a Changing Market, that was like a 90-minute program. And we did spend a lot of time covering everything, like really how to organize your business in the new market. I'd go watch that class. I think it's worth 90 minutes of your time. The 4th thing I would do is I would go find a nonprofit to do seminars for. So as a real estate agent, these nonprofits are in every single market, these first-time buyer programs. Start Googling and researching, call Mass Housing, call the local lenders and find out who is teaching, where are these classes, who's putting them on, and how can I be a part of it? And then number 5, I would work on, I liked what Katherine said. The cool thing about doing a client appreciation event is, first of all, it shouldn't cost you a lot of money. There's definitely partners that want to do it with you, mortgage, title, you name it. A client appreciation event doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I'm watching a lot of our agents do like fall photos. Like your favorite photographer who you give a lot of business to will do family photos for your client base. So maybe, we're coming up on the holiday season. You could do the family Christmas photo for them to make their holiday cards. And again, it doesn't have to be that expensive. But if I was out practicing real estate, I would work on an event calendar for 2023, where I would at least 4 times a year have an excuse to call people that has nothing to do with real estate. Client appreciation events. So I would go spend the next couple hours mapping out my calendar for next year, thinking about my excuse for calling people. So those are the things that I took out of it. Katherine, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap up today?
I appreciate the chance to talk with you about what I'm doing. And if anybody wants to call me later or email me later, I'd be happy to talk one-on-one.
Awesome. Thank you, Katherine. How about you, Kristen?
No, just thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm happy to share any of the knowledge that I've learned in my short time here.
All right. Awesome, guys. I put up on the screen, if you're watching the program, Katherine Meisenheimer. You can get her at Katherine@lairrealty.com, or Kristen Dodge, you can contact through kdodge@lairrealty.com. So thank you for spending some time. We hope that you got some great information that you will take forward in your business. And always remember that we do this at 1 p.m. Eastern time on the second Wednesday of every month. So make sure to join us next month as well. Thank you to Katherine and Kristen for joining us today. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.